Okay, so now that we've got the planes in position, we can actually create the model. So I'm going to start by creating a polygon primitive cylinder. And I'm going to use some very specific measurements. I'm going to give it a height and radius of 6 units. And that's really not as important, although it work, as that my axis division is also 6. And then I want 1 height division and 0 caps, 0 divisions for the caps, meaning the top and the bottom of it. And if I just click now, you can see what we get here, and I'll hide the tools window. So what I have now is a cylinder that's 6-sided, and that's going to be a help. You'll see in a little bit why I made the 6 sides. First thing I'm going to do is scale it, get a little more accurate to the. So one thing I can do is I can turn my shading to X-ray, and that will help me scale it and also still be able to see the pencil drawing at the same time. So I'll move this, I use the all 3 windows, all 3 orthographic windows to help me get the size I want. Now you can see it's kind of hard to understand what happened back here. My 6th, this posterior wall, kind of would be actually the anterior wall of the vertebral canal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say faces, and I'm going to select a box. So now since I'm going in the y-axis, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that, I mean to say edges. Now I have just those edges, and I'm going to scale them just in the x-axis so that they get about the width. So I'm kind of making like a horseshoe, if you will. And you can see again here in the perspective window, this is what we're looking at. Okay, so I feel like the whole thing, this is one of the difficult things about using an orthographic view. It's, you can see my bottom edge is kind of a little wider than my top. You can see where it sticks down below here even. So it's kind of hard to make a call here, but what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to make this just a little less deep anterior to posterior. I'm going to actually just bring it back like that, and maybe make it just a wee bit wider. So in the x-axis. Okay. So that's about all I'm going to do for that. And then my next step is I want to start working with dividing this so I can begin pulling faces to make the other structures that come off the body. Alright, so my next step is I'm going to insert some edge loops so I can subdivide the body. And what I'm looking to do is I want to make this transverse process that's going to come out. And in order to do that, I'm going to need a face. So I need to make, from the top window it might be easier, I need to make this arch, and I need to make the transverse processes and the spinous process. So that's quite a bit of work there. So looking from the front view and the side, I'm going to create an edge loop that's about going to give me a line on the bottom of that arch on the inferior surface right there. And then I'm going to create another edge loop just about the same width. And now you can see I've got surfaces. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take this whole model, this cylinder, and I'm going to select the object, and then I'm going to mirror cut it right down the middle. So I want to cut it in the YZ axis. I'm going to mesh, mirror cut, and I'm going to choose the YZ plane, say mirror cut, And now what I've got is two halves. And I'm just going to delete that half. Okay, so now this leaves me just with one half. I want to get that half right to the center. You can see here from the front view I'm off a little bit. I want to get that half right to the center. So I'm going to hold down the X key and just snap it to the middle. Okay, so that's my center of my grid. And now I'm going to use what's called duplicate special. Remember we did this earlier, I believe with the nucleus. And I want to make a -1 scale, -1 in the X direction. So it's going to flip it or make a mirror image. And now I want to make sure that duplicate special is set for instance. That's really important because I want to build for a while and see both sides modify simultaneously. Okay, so now I've got this duplicate special. And the first thing I'm going to do then, let's look at all four views. And if we look at the top view, you notice we've got something that we've talked about from the beginning as being really something we want to avoid. We've got a 5-sided polygon right here. The top face, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I want to make that 4-sided. And it's also going to do is give me a good place to make my the start of my vertebral arch. Okay, so I want to cut this. Now there's a couple ways we could try to do this. We could try inserting an edge loop. I'm going to hide just for a second the image planes from my perspective view. And let's see what happens if we try to insert an image plane right up here. Sorry, insert edge loop. I keep saying image plane, beg your pardon. So I got that. That's not bad. But I still haven't gotten from here to there. My top is still 5-sided. So I'm going to try another tool, the interactive split tool, which is a new tool or relatively new to Maya. Let's see how we get it to work. So if I drag, let me get a little closer so you can see better. So what I'm trying to do is I'm going to try to connect this spot to the top of the line we just made, right there. Notice when I click how I get those little green squares. That tells me if I hit enter, it's going to make an edge between those 2 points. And that's what I want, and that's what I got right there. Now I have to do the same thing on the bottom. Okay, notice it didn't do it on the bottom, just did it up top. Same tool. So you drag it and it clicks. Sometimes I've noticed in the perspective window it doesn't quite understand sometimes where you want it to be. There you go. So it can be a little fussy. So when you see it get to that spot, you click it and then hit return. So now I have two. Okay. Now I've got what I want. I can actually even improve this a little bit if I'd like to. It's kind of crooked. Notice how the line's going back, like it's going out laterally. I'd like to make it so what I can do is grab just the 3 edges on the posterior wall there and move them medially just to kind of get the line to look like it's straight. It's not. There you go. So now you see I have a better division. Okay, so we did an edge loop and then an split polygon tool. Under edit mesh, first we did insert edge loop and then we did interactive split tool. Okay. So now that we have that face, or those faces we've made, what else can we, what would we want to do with it? Well, let's grab this face, just the outside, and let's extrude it posteriorly. Okay, so I want to extrude it maybe once, and then I'm going to hit G and extrude it again. And I'll show you why I did that, why I made it two pieces, okay, in just a second. Alright, so now that I've extruded it, I can grab this face, two faces on the inside, and I can extrude them and bring them fairly close. Now I'm not going to make them touch. I'm going to leave a gap because when you're doing, let me turn off the X-ray here so it may be easier for you to see. When you're working with an instance like this and you're trying to have a mirror image occur, if you interfere or if you alter at all that midline, the software often will have a problem. And so I don't want these two edges to try to join now. What I'm going to end up doing is join them later, and I'll show you that in a little bit. But right now what I want just is that basic, this is eventually, this rectangular cavity is going to be the vertebral canal. Okay, and we'll have to do a number of things and modify this to have that happen, but just get the idea that this is where the spinal column is going to fit. All right.